Hey, Fran fam. Welcome to the Francine Walker Show. Happy Friday Eve. Joining me today is a gentleman who actually went through a divorce and journaled his process. And I was so excited to have Little Pie on the show because you rarely hear about divorce from a male perspective. You always hear it from a female perspective. So I'm excited to talk to Little Pie about his journey and how he processed this entire this entire event, I guess you could say. So please join me in welcoming Little Pie to the show. Hey, Little Pie.
Hello.
Talk a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get into your story.
Well, who I am?
Yes. As far as give us a little bit of your bio.
Well, I mean, I'm nothing more than a son, a brother, a dad, an uncle, a papa. I mean, I'm an educator as well.
Sure.
I've done things such as, tour management for R&B groups such as Minivision and Riff, or some of the groups that I've worked with in the past.
Nice.
And just wanted to kind of young man raised from Paterson, New Jersey, and just trying to be a positive influence in others' lives, whether it be young or older people.
Talk a little bit about what made you decide to write The Transition, My Journey, obviously to talk about your divorce, your experience with divorce. Why did you decide to chronicle this experience?
Well, after being in a situation where so many of my other friends, it seemed like some of us was going through this at the exact same moment. And so after hearing so many other men like dealing with this particular or going through this particular process, I felt like, wow, it would be cool to share this story from a man's perspective, since all we know is the lady side of it. So I just wanted to share it from my perspective. I think we lost. Oh, there we go.
No, no, that's just sometimes I will, allow you to be front and center on the screen. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so
All right.
that I didn't mean to scare you. And you know what? That's why it was important for me to have you on the show, because we rarely hear the man's side, and what they go through. Talk a little bit about what you did go through what resulted in your divorce. How did you feel once you were deciding to get a divorce?
Well, I'm not sure if you ever really know what you truly feel, because again, it can just be a variety of emotions. It can be one of, man, like this is painful, after being with someone for so long. Like, I don't care what you go through, you still grow together in some perspective, right? So you could either feel like, hey, this is painful, or you could feel like, man, wow, it's been, it was happening for so long. You could feel relieved that, the time has finally come, that, that you guys just agreed to just part ways. Or you could just be angry because you could feel like, I've wasted all of these years and all of this time with this individual only to break apart at this particular moment. Like, it's just like, it's an array of emotions that you feel when you're going through that particular process.
Sure. So basically, it wasn't just one emotion, it was all these emotions.
Yes.
Which makes sense because, just as you said, you've got this, you've got this, you've been with this person for a certain amount of time. a prolonged period of time. How long were you married?
Oh man, we were together. I was with that one individual, I think 19 plus years.
Wow.
So that was a long time. So you're talking about young people growing into adulthood together. So yeah, it was a long time, and and honestly, you just become interdependent at some point. In a
Sure.
relationship, you rely on each other so heavily for like minor things. And it's just because it's a comfort level there. So yeah, it was 19 plus years.
Did you like being married?
Yeah, I think I'm a family man. Like, and my dad, my uncles, like, that's all I've been around was families. You know what I mean? My dad's married to my mom's naturally. My uncle's married to their wives, and so we have we come up in that type of family where you seen full-fledged families. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You seen your mom, dad, and kids. Even my cousins. We've all basically come up in family-oriented homes. So I understand the balance, and that's something that I always wanted to be for my kids as well. So yeah, I actually enjoyed it. I mean, I can get on your nerves, you can get on my nerve, but at the end of the night, it was just cool having that partner to lock arms with in those particular moments, whether you were going through something or whether you was just sitting down. You guys had your favorite television show on a particular night where you had to make sure everybody's in the house. So it was just it was fun times.
Would you say, based on the generations, um, your family's generations of being married, would you say that was a little bit of pressure? Did you feel pressured to stay in that particular union after the love was gone? Um, or was it just kind of like an incentive or motivation? Was it pressure or motivation to stick it through?
It definitely wasn't pressure. My family, I love them. Like they're totally honest. Whether you want to hear it or not, like they're just honest people. So, and that's all you ask for when you deal with people. So, um, because there've been divorces in my lifetime with family members, so it wasn't any pressure for me. It was more motivation, and just me trying to kind of stick to that commitment that we made to each other, and let's try to roll out the platform or the blueprint that we set in the beginning, and let's see what we need to go back and revisit and kind of move a piece here and a move, because we were young, and just try to kind of reset the format, and let's see what we can do to kind of pull back together, see where we lost at, where we misstepped at, and let's try to regain that and move forward.
Was this a mutual amicable divorce, or was there a little bit of pushback on either side to divorce?
Now, there was definitely no pushback. It was at that time it was like, listen, well, you don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. You don't want me to be here. I don't want you to be here. So at that particular moment, it just became a thing of, okay, well, listen, this is what we have to do. So then you have to now go through, I think, the toughest part of separating, which is having that conversation with the babies. So
Yeah.
out of everything, that becomes the toughest part of separating and leaving a relationship. It's just talking, like looking at your kids and having this conversation when they ultimately didn't have a clue, or they didn't even see it coming. Because I'm the type of person where I don't do confrontation. I'm not confrontational. So if there was ever any disagreement between their mother and I when we were married, or even after marriage, they never saw it, because I don't like to subject my kids to any of those things, or just certain things, like anything. I just don't like to be out in the public doing, or I just don't like confrontation. So my thing is, if we can't talk it out like two responsible individuals, then I'd rather not have the conversation at that moment. I'd much rather everybody relax, think it through, That way we're not yelling at each other, but we're talking to one another. And so that was the toughest part of it though. But yeah, once it was over, it was over.
You just mentioned something that is very key when it comes to having conversation versus confrontation. A lot of times, that is a very effective way, at least I believe it to be, where it's like, okay, let's, if it's not appropriate to have this conversation in a very amicable way or manner, let's come back to it. So that says something about the fact that you're emotionally aware, so that you are emotionally available at that point versus shutting down altogether and not addressing what's at stake. Do you think that is why you decided to write your book and tell your story? You saw others, your peers, getting divorced. Did they handle it the same way you did, or were you more forthcoming and in touch with your feelings? Is that a loaded
Well,
question? Is that
it's not. I'm clear on everything you're asking. As far as I'll start with, did they handle it the same way I did? No. Even my dad and my uncles, God rest his soul, who passed of cancer, my
yeah,
bumblebee, my guy, right? They used to at some point, right? What happened was after the separation, I kind of moved, right, a block away from my ex-wife and the kids, right? So that was to give the kids a comfort level in knowing that they're not just going to see daddy on birthdays, holidays, weekends. So I wanted them to still have some sort of a normal life with daddy around. So you were still able to either leave my house and go to school or come from school and still see daddy. Daddy was still at football practices, swim practices, back to school nights. I still remain, involved. Unfortunately, a lot of my guys, they were so angry with the situations where they just didn't want to deal with, anything that had to do with, you know, their ex-wife. Although they still hung in there for their kids, they just dealt with it differently. They just, so me, as far as me being emotionally aware, that's something I've always been. As a young boy, I'm the only boy. And I have two sisters, and I'm the only boy. I'm the middle child. And
okay.
as a young boy, I'm not a big guy now, so I was small in school. So I had a hot temper. Like I was that little guy that if we were in class and there was some type of confrontation and you looked at me and said, after school is me and you, I would tear up the classroom right there. Like that's just how I would handle it. So my dad used to always tell me, like, listen, man, he used to tell me, like, I'm nervous. I'm really, really scared because like you'll just fight at the drop of a dime. So that you're talking about the early to mid 80s. So as the 90s came, the streets got a little rougher and they got a little tougher. And so he told me, man, he said, listen, you got to find a way to always be in control of everything that's going on with you.
Sure.
That way, that's the only way. He told me that's the only way you can protect yourself. And it made sense because when you're over the top, you don't see everything coming around you. So I had to learn how to say, okay, you're right. So I had to be the person where words and phrases and just different things like that, as long as you don't physically do me any harm or come into my personal space, then I had to, learn how to be the cooler head and be like, all right, cool. So then I started playing sports, and then I really learned the tactic of how to, just remain calm and at ease so that if something happens, I'm available to, protect myself. So yeah, it's definitely a conscious decision. And I teach my kids the same way, because we see so many things happening in the country today, right? So you say, all right, so my thing I teach my kids is there's a process, man. You have to understand that if you react a certain way to a response, then there's always there could be repercussions to that. And
Sure.
then you have to ask yourself, are those repercussions worth it? Just because of this little action right here, or this little saying right here, or is it even worth going through that trouble? So sometimes it's just best to say, you know what, I don't care. You win.
Yeah.
It's not a yes, because at the end of the day, you all lose, right? But
Yeah.
everybody likes to have the last word. I don't have to have the last word. Let's just go.
Yeah. And that is more typically tied to ego, would you say? Where it's like, I want to have, it's like, but are we coming to an understanding with this last word? You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And it sounds like when you divorced, you know, with all the range of emotions, you still you still were amicable. So you had a different attitude maybe towards your ex-wife as opposed to your peers, your friends, your
yeah,
boy. Um, so, and then you were looking at, although they hung in for their kids, it sounds like you went an extra step further by moving down the street, literally, from your ex-wife so that your children would have access to you.
had to. It's my job. It's my duty as a father.
Yeah,
Number one, a lot of men, what they forget is, just because you divorce the kid's mother, like, that's not an opportunity for you to divorce the kids. Like, that's crazy in itself, right? So I wanted to make sure that my kids had that availability in terms of to dad, because hey, they were going through a traumatic experience as well, seeing their parents break apart after being in this, this family, um, format for most of their lives at that particular point. So
sure.
they didn't they didn't decide for their mother and I to break up. That decision was forced up on them. So one thing I promised my kids, though, when we sat down and had the conversation with them, is that I would never leave them. That's not going to happen under any circumstances. So as a dad, if I made them that promise, then who am I to break that? So
Yeah,
I had to fulfill my promise to my kids as a dad, to let them know, like, I'm here. So as tough as that may have been for me to move, that close to them, I kind of just sacrificed my feelings, my emotions, my heartbreak. I just kind of sacrificed all that to protect them, right? And to
sure.
make sure that they're not struggling emotionally as bad with the situation. And honestly, Francine, that honestly helped me, by me being there for them, and just them being able to maneuver daily and just, go about their business. That was therapeutic for me. Like, so it kind of
Right.
like helped me through my particular situation as well, because I was like, listen, I mean nothing in this particular equation. They mean everything. So, and it really helped me a lot.
So it was almost as if, or actually, you were still fulfilling the purpose of being a father, um and in that, because it is a it is a traumatic situation, even if it is amicable, because at some point you set out for this to be your lifelong partner. So as we talked about the range of emotions, so you found some kind of, like a rope, I guess, and or to by way of your children, and providing them with an example, because so many times you hear different situations where it's like they're there for their kids, but kind of sorta, it's a
Yeah,
weekend thing. It's a it's all kinds of different arrangements, and no disrespect to whatever that arrangement is in those particular instances, but you again decided, okay, I am the adult. They are the children. I need
Yes.
to make some responsible decisions despite my own feelings, which is kind of the mature way, the mature approach, right?
So it has to be that
Yeah,
somebody. I mean, I took that conscious decision to be just that mature adult. I uh,
Your ex-wife feel
I
about
don't
that?
I don't like, for one, everybody that knows me knows I don't like messy. I don't like confrontation. I don't like chaos.
Yeah,
I'm 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 OCD, so I like everything in order. Number one. So yeah, I mean, and she had we had our moments where we didn't agree with one another, right?
right.
But at the end of the day, when it comes down to my kids, I can care less how you feel. It's my job as a dad, right?
Mhm.
And even my kids shared, like, listen, you're not going to replace this guy like that. That'll never happen because dad is dad, right? So in our relationship, like my kids are young adults now, right?
Mhm.
So even now, I live in a different state than them, only 3 hours away, but they'll call me. What are you doing? All right, you come to my place and have dinner. So we still do those things, and they still cook Father's Day dinner and invite me over. I was just up at my daughter's house last weekend, right? But actually, she flipped the script on me. She asked me to cook. She wanted me to come there. She just moved in and help her get her place together. Oh, by the way, can you cook?
Yeah.
So it's great because sometimes when kids get in their 20s, their late teens, their early 20s, mid 20s, that's when they really start separating from parents. But it seems like my kids and I, we get closer as they get older, which is a beautiful thing, man. And I never shun them or shot, like, oh, you grown now. Go do. I was like, when they call and they want to hang out, let's go, let's
Yeah.
do it. Like
Well,
that's a blessing.
you created that relationship. You built that relationship from, when they were babies. So, contrary to popular belief, they still need you probably forever. It seems like, yeah, the 20s, but so many young adults and older adults, they are missing, that was a missing
Yeah.
component, and it made a very huge difference in their lives to not have that father. And so you have what we have right now, where it's like they just needed a hug. They just
Yeah.
needed a
Yeah.
father to just tap them on the, shake, rub their heads. I'm just thinking about how my son went with his dad, just that contact, hugging and all of that. What would you like to, with the transition, my journey, I want to talk about dating and moving on, but I also want to ask you, what would you like people to take away from your story? What is it? I'm assuming that you wrote the book as a way to process what you were going through, chronicle what you were going through for healing, but it also serves a purpose for someone else to read. What would you like them to get from your book?
But what I really want people to get from this book is not just from a relationship perspective, but just anything in life, man. We all have a journey, we all have a process, and we all at some point hit rock bottom, right? And when we hit rock bottom, we have this thing that I call hidden wounds, man. And the process of getting to rock bottom, it causes these internal wounds, and not all the time do people know how to deal with them, or not all the time do people actually want to deal with them, right? So
Yeah.
what we do is we start putting ourselves in different situations to ignore it, right? So think about, I just want people to understand, like, and in the book, like that healing journey, that's an important component, man. Like you have to see that all the way through, no matter what. Um, think about if you get a cut, a deep cut, right? When you initially cut yourself, man, that thing hurts like none other. Like it hurts. I don't care what you do to it to doctor it up, right? So that's that initial internal wound, right? That pain, that deep pain. So
Sure.
as this wound begins to heal, it still goes through those painful processes, right? As it begins to heal. And you have to, but you can't, there's nothing you can do with it. You have to allow it to heal. Just like, so that's what I want people to get out of reading this book, that you have to go through that full process of healing. And just because you see that scab forming, that doesn't mean you peel it off. You have to let it fall off, because when you peel that scab off, that means you interrupted the healing process. Now you start to bleed again, and it starts, hurting again. So when you allow the scab to fall off on its own, then that the healing process has completely, transformed it. So that's what I want people to understand in any situation that you're going through. Stop stalling the healing process. Like,
That's
allow that continue. Listen, it's going to be some painful moments in that healing process. There
yeah,
will be. I promise you that, right? But don't stop the healing process to avoid those painful moments, because then what you're setting yourself up for is a painful lifetime if you don't allow yourself to heal. Think about how many people go out of one situation, and because they're scared to be by themselves, jump right into another situation. So now you have toxic here, you create more toxic there, then you create more toxic. That's why so many toxic adults in the world today, man,
yeah,
because nobody wants to take that time for themselves to say, you know what? I need to get me right. I need to be right with me before I can be right with someone else. So that was my process. It took me 7 years before I decided to actually jump into a relationship. But I did go through this dating process just to see if I was ready. So
yeah,
I did do some dates just to see. And I remember having a conversation with a young lady on social media, and she was like, "Well, let's hook up." I knew the young lady, but she was
yeah.
like, let's hang out." I said, "Oh, cool." So I said, "This Friday, if you're not doing nothing, come over to my place. You know, I'll put some some hot dogs or something on the stove, and we can just sit down and watch a little TV or whatever, just hang out, talk a little bit." And when the young lady finally, when she did show up to my apartment, uh, the heat was on high. It was in January, so naturally in Jersey, snow, my heat
Yeah.
is going to be on. And it's like as soon as she walked into the apartment, she was like, "Wow, it's hot in here." And I asked her to leave. Don't know why I did at that moment, but I asked her to leave. And it wasn't until later I realized that I was still healing, because I felt like you walked into my apartment and right away you just started complaining about the heat. So, and not that what she was doing necessarily. It's
Yeah.
just that I was still, emotionally tied into, you know, moving on from my particular situation. So I wasn't ready. I just wasn't
Yeah.
ready. So yeah, it was little things that I did. But once I felt that I was good, and the young lady that I'm with now, it just felt right. Everything about it. Like we became really, really, really good friends, man. Like that was my homie. Like we got to the point where we were just like one individual. We stepped together. Everything we did, man, we just like, we enjoyed each other. We got into each other, and we learned each other as human beings before we really locked in and got serious about being with each other. So yeah,
Good.
that's my advice to anybody, man. I don't care
Yeah.
how old you are. I don't care how young you are. Like, never allow anyone to pressure you into a situation. And a lot of times, we see these weddings, we go to these weddings, and then have you ever noticed you go to a wedding and then probably a month later you see a couple, they're engaged. It's like, yeah, when did that happen? But everybody always gets so fascinated by the event, right?
Sure.
That they don't understand what marriage is really about. They just think it's about just this big wedding, this big, fancy wedding, getting everybody to come in. Like that's far from the truth, man. Like
So
you
are you
gotta
looking
learn to enjoy
forward?
each other. Say that
Yeah.
again?
Are you looking forward to getting married again? Would you get married again?
I would. I would.
Okay.
Yeah, without question. Again though, it has to be a situation, man, where I'm inspired to get married again. You know what I mean? Because you can really be into an individual, but then you got to be like, then you got to have that conversation so that they can understand where you are and
Yeah.
you can understand where they are, right? Because I don't care. In any business decision, there has to be rules. Like there has to be a blueprint. Everybody has to understand one another, and everybody has to have a goal or a common goal in
Hmm.
line. So I can't just marry you because I really love you, and like we really have to sit down. So what are our goals? What do we want out of this marriage? Like what do we want to accomplish as a team? So definitely has to be a blueprint in order. And we've started building that blueprint, and my family laugh at me because they think I turn everything into business. So they're like, "Have you and Key talked about?" I'm like, "Yeah, we've had business meetings." Like,
Right. Right. I mean, it is, but
so,
it
but
is kind of a business partnership. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You
it
have to
is.
kind of address it, attack it. Maybe
You have
attack
to
is not the best word. From that perspective.
approach it from
Approach.
that
There it
perspective.
is.
Yes,
Yes. Approach it that way because you are building and that is part of it.
yes.
So you are open. Has your ex-wife, I apologize, your ex-wife, has she remarried?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. You know what is interesting? You mentioned something because I know in the dating world, we're like, oh my God, he just got a divorce. You don't want to mess with, you don't want to mess with him because typically you will end up being the rebound person. And it's like, the rule is give them 2 years. It's like, because the first year, it's like, but it sounds like you took 7 years. Why
Yeah,
so long?
because that rule is bogus.
Oh,
It is. That 2 year
yeah,
rule is bogus because think like first of all, time moves by rather quickly, right? So that first
right,
year, you're still kind of like, man, this really happened. You know what I mean? So you
yeah,
still have those denial moments, right? And you still have those moments where the communication between you and your ex-wife still isn't where it needs to be in order to build a partnership just for the kids that were left, you know what I mean, behind in that particular marriage. And that's so important. Like people don't think like that's an important component, but that's so important, especially when your kids were younger when you guys separated. So you got to be able to have that relationship where, okay, when it comes down to the kids, we're going to be adults about it. We're going to pull together as partners because we are still partners in this particular aspect of the the relationship. So we have to be there for them. And that first year, you're still trying to build all of that. You're still trying to build it in a way where the emotions are detached from it, where you can be around her and she can be around you, and there's no bickering, or there's no relapse, you know what I mean? And
right.
get locked into that emotional thing, and then it becomes messy again. So
Yeah,
you have to allow yourself that time to get through that particular hump, right? And then the second year, I think, is when the true healing starts. You've accepted it, right? You've accepted what's going on. You've learned how to maneuver around it. And like I say again, you're still going to have those moments where there's minor relapses where you guys aren't getting along, or they're like things where you don't agree on, and it becomes, So I just think it took that time for me because, again, I wanted to be responsible for making sure my kids' healing was intact, and then I wanted to worry about my healing. So it's different for everyone, but that 2-year rule, though, that's definitely bogus. I promise you that. Like,
Well, tell me this, little pie. You said whatever question I ask, you were going to answer.
Let's go.
7 years is a long time. Were you sexually active during that time?
No.
No?
No.
Wow.
I'll tell you why. When I got my apartment, my own place, my kids, they used to hang out with me. They came to stay with me, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to allow another woman in my bed when my kids came and laid around in that bed with me. So those were just my rules. So I wasn't doing that. And I wasn't canceling. I don't care if my kids wanted to do something as minor as lay on the floor in my apartment and play Uno with me that night. I wasn't canceling no plans with my kids to go hang out with another young lady. I wasn't doing that. Because it's like, again, their well-being mentally and emotionally was more important to me than me getting myself back into a relationship. So yeah, I stayed away from that because I know once you get into that part of it again,
yeah,
then it's creating, that I've had women approach me, and I'm not the type of person where I'll say, I'll think about it. I'm the type of person that no is no, so that you won't come back later and ask me the same thing. So I've had women like, oh, he got divorced, he done turned gay, you don't want to do it. Like, nah, I mean, listen, you can say what you want, but I know who I was, and I just wanted to be careful and the steps that I took, because men and women, this goes, for all. When you're a nice looking person, you have a great personality and people know you, right? And
yeah.
people hear that you separated from someone or broke up from out of a relationship or divorced someone, man, they can't wait. Like, they just want to get in on the action because I just want to see. Yeah. So I wanted I wanted to kind of stay away from all of that behavior, because I know at the end of the day, man, you can get caught up. You can get caught up. And I tried to tell my guys, they like, oh man, you need to get somebody, help you get yourself together, help you get your apartment. No, because once I got my own place and I got all of my own things, I didn't want nobody saying, oh, I did that for him. Oh, he owed me. I wanted to, when I did finally decide to step into a relationship, I didn't have to hide no one from no one. I didn't have to, go through this whole thing, people just popping up at my apartment. I didn't want to have to go through. Again, I don't like the messy, and I don't like, so I didn't want to do that. So yeah, I honestly stayed away from it. Hard, extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we stayed away from it though.
I mean, I hate to call you a unicorn, but you sound like a unicorn, because typically what happens a lot of times, and you said it, women are the emotional laborers when a gentleman breaks up with someone, and it's like they don't take that time as you did to heal. So what they do is they take their baggage, versus dropping it and evaluating it, like, okay, unpack it. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of
Yeah.
that. let's keep this, so they take their baggage to someone else, and then they dump that baggage on that woman, so, and it's not her responsibility to unpack what you disassembled,
Yeah.
previously. It's not fair, and it's not their responsibility. And it's really your work to do. And as displayed, you do come out on the other side, right? It's like there are those painful moments. And as you said,
Yeah.
you mentioned painful moments. This is a journey. So if it's just a painful moment and it's not entirely painful, you can get through it.
Deal with it and move through it. First of
Yeah.
all, surround yourself with honest people.
Yeah.
Listen, I've had people, let me tell you, from friends of mine, coworkers, to my family. I've had people, man, that looked me in my face and said some things to me. I'm like, man, you're harsh. But then after they say it, you think about it, you're like, but they're right. They're so right. Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to group yourself with yes men or yes women. You know what I mean? That sit there and they go ahead and invite others to your tea party and you guys just celebrate, you being down on yourself. You don't want that. You want people who understand your character, right? And understand your strengths and understand your flaws. So you want people around you that can say, you know what, that's not who you are, right? So we're not going to, just because of this one situation, we're not going to allow you to become this person because you just want to sit here and feel sorry for yourself. So you
Yeah.
definitely got to be careful with who you surround yourself with in key moments such as this. And like
Yeah.
you say, and women, man, stop. These dudes been through craziness. Love yourself enough to not want to inherit these problems, man. Like you gotta love yourself too. So
Yeah.
because being honest with you, I've seen it. They listen, if it's a convenience for them at that particular moment, they're going with it. And if you can become their convenient moment,
Yep.
that's just who you are. You're their convenient moment, right? And then when they're ready to roll out, they're gone. So now
Yeah.
you're stuck with all this. So now they had situations that they hadn't dealt with that they've now pushed off on you, right? Now you got these same situations, right? And now you're dealing with his mess and your mess. So
Yeah.
stop allowing these dudes to walk up to you and blame you. And plus you got to beware, because when people are coming out of relationships, first thing they like to do is blame everything on their mate. Listen,
Yeah.
we all had some responsibility in this break. We've all did some things in the process of this relationship where, you know what I mean, we can question our behaviors as well. So, and when you get this person, oh, it was just him, or it was just her, it like, come on, stop. That right there shows the immaturity of that individual. And if you fall for that, then you still need to heal yourself as well.
You need to teach classes. Seriously, you really do need to package this in such a way, because I don't know, you might have been under a rock, little pie, but you've seen the Derek Jackson debacle, and you've probably heard about it, or maybe
Yeah.
not. You've heard the Kevin Samuels, Tevin Samuels, speaking on behalf of, or speaking to broken men. And then it's like, we're talking about this high value man and high value woman. And it's like, wait a minute, we were all created worthy. So where does this value come in? But we need voices like yours to counteract and really speak to the brokenness, whether the brokenness was from childhood or relationships, that you keep going. It's like, and I've seen memes that say something like, they don't change, they just move on to the next person
Yeah.
unchanged.
That's
and
it.
and you miss out on so much not changing, and you create these broken relationships in your trail, you know. And in defense of women, it's like we're nurturers by nature.
Oh, no
So,
question.
you
No
know, we
question.
want to take in the bird with the broken wing, you know, and especially if it's like they're employed, they're good looking, you know, they're halfway. So, you know, so you were a catch. And it was like, oh shoot, everybody swooped down and but you could have fallen prey to that that typical process or way of being that men go into. Women, I wish women were more um, would move on, but women typically after divorce don't always move on. And then they harbor some, so it's like women have to do their part to heal, and you know, for the sake of their families, you know, share children. But it's yeah, just we need a voice to counteract what is being said out here. It's like, man, you see everyone telling women how to be and what to do, and how to tie themselves in this knot, and, you know, bend over this way and bend that way. And it's like, so you can get this guy, but no one is talking to the brokenness in men, and letting them know it's okay to feel.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned the that you identified a range of emotions. It wasn't just one. It was a range of emotions. Sherry Price says, "Brokenness breeds brokenness." Amen,
That's that,
Sherry.
that's my oldest sister right there. I love that
Oh,
lady.
hey, Sherry. So yeah. So it's got to stop. Pie. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's killing us. You know, it's like a
The sad part about it though, as much as we talk, right? Um, Either on your show or on my platform as well,
yeah,
Vibe Sessions, as much as we talk these things, for some reason, and I don't get it, people are attracted to the negative and the craziness. Like,
yeah,
nobody wants to hear these things to help them, right? Everybody wants to be lied to. Nobody wants to, you know, be told the truth. As much as they say they do, they don't. Like, because again, it wasn't an easy process.
absolutely.
However, it was a necessary process, because what I'm not going to do, right, is live my life um holding on to some hurt from something, or pretending like, that particular situation is the reason why I'm dealing with this particular situation. Like, that right there is like my sister said, you got to take ownership, man. Accountability is like
Yeah,
so necessary. And so often we want to push everything on our behaviors, our disrespect, our mistreating others, right? We want to always push that off on because of that. No, that's because that's who you are, right? That's who you want to be. That's who you want to continue to be, right? So you're going to do it and then try to blame it on something else. We've all suffered some type of loss in life.
absolutely.
All of
Absolutely.
us have, right? So now it's up to you to say, you know what, I suffered that particular loss, but now I got to do right by me. Yeah, and that's what, for me, that's what it's all about. If I can't be truthful to me about who I am, then I can't be truthful to you about who I am or who you are to me, because I don't even know who I am to me, because
Yeah.
I allowed me to be so messy. I allowed me to be so crazy. I allowed me to be so erratic in my behaviors, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
it's like, yeah, I really don't know who I am, right? So until I correct me, I'm never gonna be happy. And people don't get that. Okay, you may have moments where you're happy, but when you gotta lay down by yourself at night, let me tell you something. When
Yeah.
that room it's quiet, right? All you can hear is you.
Yeah.
All you
And
can
what
hear
we
is
do,
you.
if we don't, we medicate it with food, drugs, you know what I mean? All those things, and we're missing out. Mike Fisher says, facts, little pie.
What's up, little bro?
Sherry says, our environment has shaped us to be someone we were not created to be. You're correct. Yes, Sherry, I
Yeah,
agree.
100. Yeah.
But I think we're adult enough to identify that as what has happened, and it's not making us better. We're robbing ourselves of a richer life because we're holding on. And do you think it has a lot to do with, or a little bit to do with, ego? It's like, I don't want anybody, because men are typically groomed, raised to not feel. You had that encounter in school when I think it was your dad told you how to process your emotions and not be this little hothead. So you were taught early on how to maneuver your
Yeah.
emotion, not suppress them, but maneuver.
Face them and deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple, right? Like, listen, every day I come home, I'm fighting from school. That's crazy. That's insane. That is that. If you
Yeah.
think about it, it's insane, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, he had to like, listen, you got to figure this out, man, because one day you never know, right? So you got
Yeah.
to figure this thing out. So, and that's what I teach my sons as well. Although they're young adults, I still teach them the same thing. And the
Yeah.
one thing I never deprive my boys of, I have one girl, naturally daddy's girl. He love on
Yeah.
her things. But one thing I've never deprived my boys of was a hug, a kiss on the cheek, and a
Yeah.
I love you. Every encounter we have, whether it's a telephone conversation, whether I'm dropping
Good.
them off somewhere, whether it's football practice, football
That's
games,
good.
every encounter we have, and it's nothing private, it's in front of the team, and they're not embarrassed about it. There's an I love you before we part ways while they go do what they do. And I
Yeah.
wanted my boys to understand that, listen, there's nothing wrong with loving. There's nothing wrong that if something hurts, there's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with doing any of that stuff, because when you start telling these young boys, "Oh, men don't cry," you are creating a monster, and that's why we have what we have in these streets now with our young black men just taking each other's lives because they have no feeling toward anything or anyone,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's sad. It's sad. So
It's
yeah,
very
as
sad.
men, man, we got to stand up and make sure our boys are raised in a way where they can be, I mean, fruitful young men when they get
Yeah.
older, not angry young men, so.
I already knew that this conversation beforehand was going to be very needful and very dynamic. I want to be cognizant of your time because, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to say this. Sometimes it's because you were raised well by great parents. That's what Mike says.
Oh, 100%.
But
100%. Yes.
so here is the challenge we are faced with. A lot of people weren't as fortunate as you. Okay. So in our closing, I sound like a pastor, first closing. But as we're closing the show, what do you say to the fatherless men now who have this? They're carrying around this huge, like I said, baggage of unresolved hurt, you know, unresolved. I've heard people say, nobody ever hugged me, not even their mother. So I'm like, for real? I mean, I come from a household where it's like, hey, you leaving? Okay, love you. We hang up. Okay, love you. You know, we are a family that did that. And it's like, whoa, you know,
Yeah.
it happened. So what do you say to men right now that didn't have the moments you had that shaped you to be who you are, even in the midst of a divorce and the dissolution of a relationship, a marriage? You, and I'm not saying it was all perfect. We know it wasn't
Yeah.
perfect, but you chose to take these steps to heal as long as you needed to, so that you wouldn't go around creating these unbroken relationships with women, and then they gotta heal because it's like
Yeah.
this unhealed Negro that came. I done took them in, and and I thought I
Yeah.
could nurse them. It's
Definitely.
like, you can't nurse that. They
No,
gotta
you
nurse
can't.
that. You can
Yeah.
say that's good, and you can be there as a support, but sometimes I don't know. I think you should just kind of like, and I've seen that happen where it's like I went out with someone and it's like, great guy, looked good on paper, looked good off paper, but was still not ready. And I remember him saying, "So we're going on a second date?" I'm like, "I don't think so. I don't think so." It was like, no, because I deserve someone that's going to be fully whole and present as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right?
In the moment. Yeah.
In
Definitely.
the moment. So what do you
Hmm.
say? So that just speaks to my personal experience with someone, but what do you say to those people, those men that are worthy of love and worthy of healing and understanding that they are, but they are just so closed? I didn't have that. I didn't have a loving family, as Sherry said, loving in an affectionate way and telling them you was kind, you was good, and you was important. They didn't have that, because we gotta keep hope alive. What do you say to those individuals, um, that feel that are closed, that are using that as an excuse not to heal? Well, I didn't have what you had, little pie. So, uh, what do you say?
Well, it's tough in terms of words. And again, as an educator, I work in school system where we have these young men and these little boys, and I when I first started, my approach was talking, but
Yeah,
again, they're so locked out that words mean absolutely nothing to them, at that particular moment. So it became a point where you just had to show them. You had to, let them know it was cool to hug another man. It was cool to tell them you love them. It was cool to let them know that, listen, you can be anything you want to be, man. Just, put your mind to it, and let's buckle down and let's get to it. So I don't think it's so much as what you can say to them. I think it's just more becoming a part of that particular individual, man, and just helping them along the way, and them seeing that, wow, okay, it's not just talk. Because let's face it, how many conversations could someone have possibly had prior to you showing up, right? So
yeah,
how many times did you talk to dad and he's like, oh, I'm on my way, and he never shows up, right? How many times have you talked to dad and said, yeah, I promise you I'll be there for your birthday, and he never shows up, right? So what could I say to make them say, oh, I believe him, right? So it's
yeah,
more of what can you do, once you come in contact with someone like that. You just have to step up, right? If you want to take
yeah,
on that responsibility, you have to step up and show them that I can help you, right? And walk you through some things, man. And you'll have full access to me, so that we can get you right. So once you show them, right? Once you show them that there's love that can come from a different place,
Yeah.
and they feel that energy from you, then you can kind of start winning them over. But just a shared conversation or me just saying a couple of words. I watch all these dynamic speakers. They get on social media screaming into the camera. That
Yeah.
stuff means nothing. You know what I mean? That stuff
Yeah.
means nothing. Stop screaming at people what they should do, right? When it's more than just them not doing it that's affecting their particular life.
Yeah.
Um, Everything that's common sense ain't common. You know what I mean? So certain people grew up learning certain things, and if you wasn't taught certain behaviors, certain ways to speak, certain ways to walk, then they're not. To us, it's like, wow, you should know better. But no, they don't. They
Yeah.
because they were taught better, right? So no matter what their age is, if they wasn't taught that, then they don't know that, right? We watch. I see so many young men that go to college from the hood, right? And then they get caught up in some things with family members or other people. We'd be like, wow, man, you was on the right path. But you know, the
Right.
sad thing is, think about this. There's young men, young women even, they'll come home from college, right? The family won't throw them no party. But if somebody come home from jail, they'll have the biggest celebration they can possibly
Oh,
have. So
yeah.
our mindset as a people is so jacked up to it, like it really hurts us in ways, man. If they know somebody going to jail, they'll throw a party for that person before they gotta go turn themselves in. And when they come home, they'll have this huge celebrate. But let a kid come home from college, right?
So we have a lot of healing to do just in the
We do.
community, you know,
Yes.
overall. It's, we're seeing so much, even the conversations, and not even to go into that, but just what we're seeing right now currently. It's like, yeah, we gotta, we have to defund the police and break that racist system down, but we've got some work to do as well, and not from a respectability politic where it's like, we got to do more so they won't shoot us and kill us and slaughter us. But we've got some things that we have to work on in our own community, where you're right. That is something that is very common, where we coddle,
Yeah.
the crime, but not the college, or
Yeah.
we coddle the criminal, but not the
The
college,
positive. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
It's like it's crazy.
And so it's
But
like, oh,
but
you should, you don't cry, and it's like, and you just be hard, and it's like, man, I see, and it makes me kind of shudder, like, whoa, I pray I don't run into this guy, because it's just this hard. We just, you're right. And I think, as again, you have create, provided us with your journey as uh as kind of like a quote unquote blueprint, right?
yeah, it is. It is.
Using
And I
your
hope
word.
people. I hope people can really get into it and understand that, because although it's from a man's perspective, it's what men or women can do in
Absolutely.
that particular process. You know, from the separation to the healing process, the transition, getting yourself back in tune with you, right? And making sure your kids are good. If you had any kids, making sure your kids are good throughout the situation. And then at the end of it, man, at the end of that particular book, it's just about avoiding that in general, right? So some of the things you guys agreed upon, like you got to start challenging your mate. Like, let's be honest, right? We get so comfortable sometimes, right? So if you told me that no matter what, you'll love me, and now we have a little disagreement, now you want to walk to the other side of the room. Nah, that's not what we said, right? So come on,
Yeah.
bring yourself over here. Come on. Yeah, you may be upset about this particular moment, right?
Yeah.
But we're still us. So come on over here and give me this hug. And come on, yeah, we said what we had to say, and you got to learn how to listen. Whether in a relationship or out of all types of relationship, parental relationships, sibling relationships, friendships, whatever it is, man. When you're not in agreeing with the person, you got to learn how to speak to someone and not
Yeah.
at someone. That's so important, man. The respect level, and like Mike said, it all starts with the person. And at home is the biggest part of the training, man. It's so necessary. It's so
Yep.
necessary. And I tell people that all the time. They're like, oh, but nah, listen, because I grew up in some harsh places, but based on my training, I knew what was right and I knew what was wrong. So it was my decision to make whether or not I wanted to take the wrong route or the right route. Perfect by any stretch of the imagination, I wasn't. But I
Yeah.
made sure I kept myself on the right path so that I could succeed at some level. And so it definitely starts at home. But when you, like you say, when you don't have it at home, you
Yep.
gotta be willing to, embrace that young man or embrace that young lady and tell them you love them and somebody loves you and you're better than what you're portraying. And listen, and let's move forward. So it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. You mentioned young man, young woman, and I was also including some of these 30, 40, 50, 60.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, young man, young woman, middle-aged man, middle-aged
Yes,
woman,
you know,
old man,
so
old woman. Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
you're right.
I think it's, probably it goes without saying that you're never too old to change and heal. Like, well, that's the way I've been doing it. And, but you miss out on such a rich experience. Just as you said, you have a disagreement and now we've got these walls up and it's like, no, 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 no. That's
Nah,
not
yeah, we're not doing
the
it. Yeah.
that's not the way we have decided we're going to communicate in this relationship.
Yeah.
So then that makes it such much more refreshing because relationships are not meant to be a struggle. They're meant to be enjoyed, not endured, right? Like we got to get
Listen,
out of this. It's constant. It's
it's
got to be constant fighting. It's like, well, I don't want it.
it's sad. Yeah, it's sad that relationships are supposed to be an emotional thing, man, where you're connected to your partner and
Yeah.
you feel, even when they walk in the door, you can feel whether or not they're having a good moment or a bad moment. That's the connection you're supposed
Yeah.
to have. But we get so complacent that we go from being emotional in relationships to just going through the motions in relationships, just being there physically, and we think that that's enough when that's really not enough, just being there physically. Listen, it takes an emotional being to
Yeah.
heal another emotional being. You got to match those energies, man, and you guys got to come together. Listen, you got to be so in tune that even when they text you, you can feel the distress in their text message. Like that's
That's
the
what's up.
level. Yeah, that's the level. Like if I get a text message, I'm like, what's
Yeah.
wrong?
Yeah.
What's
But that
wrong? You
isn't
know what
that
I
the
mean?
spiritual connection too, where it's
It
like
is. It is.
there is
It
that
is.
spiritual portion that it's like, okay, I gotta check with my husband. And it's like
Yeah.
it's like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like, oh
Yeah.
no, so this has been such a refreshing conversation, very enlightening. And I kept you a little longer than we planned, but I hopefully,
No
that was
worries.
okay. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you
me
for
today.
having me. Thank you
Yeah, it's
for
been
having me.
good. And I pray that, whoever's watching and who watches the replay, that they know that there is hope and there is hope in healing and you can heal and you're not
Yes.
too macho and masculine to heal. Mike says before we close, women don't change, us men change for the right women. right woman, 365 days a year. You know, that's true. And to be honest, I would not want to. I'm glad you said that, Mike, as we're closing. I don't want to, I don't want the work. I don't want the emotional labor to change a man. How about that? And if women stopped taking on that position of pack mule, you know, and doing that, I don't want to change you. Matter of fact, I want you to come change. You know how they say, be her peace and be his peace? No, come at peace. Come on, come
Yeah.
already at peace. Because I'm maintaining my peace over here. So guess what? Come to me at peace 365 days a year. Is that what you said? For it to work, in my opinion. That is a great perspective, Mike. No woman worth her weight in gold should seek to change another human being, another grown person. She has enough to do in the work for herself. The
Yeah,
emotional
but
labor
and here's
needs.
my thing, right? At what point, right? And this is to all the men, right? At what point do you become responsible for who you are, right? Like, bruh,
Yeah,
like I get it, right? Okay, you mad
yeah,
at something, right? But guess what? That person didn't create that anger. So stop. Like again, just stop with all the because of this person and because of that person and whatever.
yeah.
Like
I mean, the right person the right person might not necessarily show up because you've got this wall up. You're not
because of
letting
your
anything
energy.
good in,
Correct. Yeah.
anything bad in. So it's like just become right. And so everything that is aligned or meant for you will align itself to you. I don't think it necessarily has to be where it's like, well, I'm going to change. No, just change. Just
Yeah.
change for the good of who you are. Don't change, it's like that. There might be someone you meet. It's like, man, that might be a motivator, but I think you should already be in the process.
I'm
You
I'm
don't,
gonna drop this on you and then I'm gonna let you go, right?
yeah,
Honestly, okay, everybody always says change, right? But think about who you were at the beginning of your existence, right? And think about all the things you dealt with in your personal journey that created these angers, these hurts. So are you really changing or are you getting back to the root of who you really are?
yeah,
By
yeah,
releasing all of these things that cause you to become hard and hateful, and so it was these situations again that created these internal wounds, right, that allows you to be the person that you are. So
yeah,
it's all about that healing process. You must allow yourself to fully heal. Don't
yeah,
stop it. There's going to be painful moments in that healing process. Fight through those painful moments and
yep.
get to the end where there's light at the end of that tunnel.
You gotta
Love
check the ego.
yourself and love
Yes,
everyone else. Yeah.
yeah. It's I know I've had people say, they would share with me, and it's like, wow, have you spoken to a therapist? Have you talked to somebody? I'm talking now. No, I'm not a therapist. No. I'm just like, no, we're not talking. Because that is not what I'm equipped to do. So, those traumas and those triggers and all
Yeah.
of those things that you talk about just now, going back to that, and it's like, okay, this needs to work. And one more thing, women are wired one way. We have to adjust for it to work. I think that's the way the team grows.
100. We definitely, because women, like you say, they're nurturers by nature, right?
Yeah,
So that's who they are. So we have to respect that, right? As men, and we have to respect it in a way where we're not putting off no crazy energy on you,
yeah,
right? To
yeah,
turn you sour and crazy. So like you say, as men, man, we have to make the adjustment because that's what
yeah,
we do anyway as men. We adjust to everything, right? So when we come in, we can't be who we are at work when we come home to be with our lady, right?
Yeah.
We can't come home and be who we are with our guys. So we definitely got to make sure that, hey, listen, we got to respect this queen in a way where whoever she is to me, she can remain that by me respecting,
Yeah.
showing her, and appreciating her in a way. Again, though, Mike, that means by being tapped in emotionally to
Yeah.
your queen, man, so that because they need energy too. You could drive a car all day long, right? All week long. And if you don't stop at that gas station and refuel it, it's just going to be sitting in one spot.
Yeah.
So these women need refueling. Like we can't just keep sucking all the gas out of them and not
Yeah.
filling them back up from time to time. So if it's that date night, if it's that I'll cook tonight, if it's that let me sit down here and rub your feet tonight, we gotta refuel our women so that they can go to sleep at peace, knowing that this dude I got beside me is for me. And as
Yeah.
long as they got that, they'll keep putting it out. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely
And
right about that.
and as they read The Transition, My Journey by Little Pie McElveen, they will be able to adjust. They got to come
Yeah,
because a lot of people aren't open to even adjust. It's like, well, that's just the way I am, and this is what you're gonna get.
yeah,
This
stop.
is stop. You can't do that. And
Yes,
and
stop.
when we make our adjustments, it's like, oh, is that your husband? Okay, girl, let me let you go. My husband home.
Simple.
We
Yeah, simple. I respect.
my husband is home,
Yeah,
girl. I'm gonna let you go, and we know that's the code. That's the code.
yeah.
It's
And
he
and
walk in.
if she on the other end to my you hanging up, then you got to know that you got to release yourself from that individual as well, right? So
Absolutely,
and I want to say I want women,
please,
right? I want
please.
women to stop running with this lie, right? That you're independent. There's no one on the face of this earth independent.
No,
Everyone relies on something or someone to
yes,
get through life, right? So stop because there's some good men out there too that are trying to get in, but we shut them down with the craziness, right? Oh, I'm not gonna listen. No one's independent, so I want everybody to stop that lie, right? They done heard that song and everybody runs with it. Everybody relies on something or someone to make it through life.
I gotta
Once you're
have you
able
come back
to embrace
on.
that, you're good.
I gotta
I'm
have you
cut
come back on, Little Pie, because you
whenever.
know what? We don't want to always be independent. We have been forced to be independent because guess what? We've got that other component where it does fall all on us. You said there are some good men out there. Well, there are some good men out there, you know, and until that woman comes in contact with that one, because you only need one,
Yeah.
from that some,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure she gonna relinquish some of that, independence. You know what I mean? So,
Definitely.
um, what is Kirsten saying? The difference is not being codependent, but interdependent.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I actually made that statement earlier,
Yes.
Kirsten. So
Yeah.
she's on.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
tell you what we do, right? I'll come back if
Yes.
you can find a group of people, a few people, right, that want to come on. Let's do a panel
Yeah.
and let's have this healthy conversation.
I think that would be a definite great thing to do.
Just
Yeah.
just reach out to
Yeah,
me when
because
you're ready.
she's one of my girls. She's really big into relationship dynamics, and we've been trying to pull some things together. But we also want the balance. We don't necessarily, not the necessarily men is from what is it? I don't even know because men are from Mars and women are from Venus. But we need
Yeah.
these conversations without the
Yeah,
we need
yeah,
to take
definitely.
down. Mike made some very important points, and it's like we all have to be on the road to heal, but if we're going to heal
That's it.
together, we've got to
Come
bridge.
together. Yeah, we got to bridge that gap. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to find the balance,
All right.
it's between the masculine and the feminine energy. You talked about that. Coming home, it's like you can't be like you are with your boys,
Now
just
you
like
can.
I'm, I can't be like I am out in the workforce. It's like,
Yeah.
no, hey, babe, what you want for dinner? I'm checking that masculine energy at the door, and now I'm like the pussycat
Yeah.
fixing,
But and vice versa. If I beat you home from work, why are you coming home from work asking me what I want for dinner? Why haven't I got up off my behind and started dinner? You know what I mean? Like, so like
yeah,
it has to be that way.
yeah,
A lot of men might be like, oh, there he go. No, but it's true. Like, why can't and this is what I learned growing up. My mom, like, she makes sure my dad is good. But if she's not feeling well, my dad is like, all right, well, here it is. But he can cook. So they taught us that as like you gotta know how to cook to be able to not
yeah,
only take care of yourself, but your family as well. So
yeah,
yeah, it has to be that shared responsibility. All that this is the man's responsibility. Stop living in the stone ages.
yeah,
And like she said,
yeah,
like we said, become interdependent and just take care of one another. Like
yeah,
it's just take care of one another. So yeah,
yeah,
let's do it. Let's set it up.
yeah,
Mike
yeah.
said, "Mama ain't happy. Nobody is.
Nope,
100%." Mike,
nope,
you know
nope.
that.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. This has been
my pleasure.
amazing. This has been great, as I knew it would. I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to work with Kirstina, and we're going to get a panel together and have you come back because, again, we need to take your story, take your journey of healing, and show others it's possible. But you got to check your ego. You got to check all that other stuff so that we can get to this other stuff so that we can lead more richer, wholesome lives and love. And
Yeah, man.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's
Life
it's
life is short. We're seeing too many good people all of a sudden just go, man. Let's stop living
start
in
loving.
anger,
Yeah,
frustration, and stop living in all these different emotions, man, that mean nothing. Like I often say, anger is a wasted emotion. Like you get mad
yeah,
at somebody and one, the next minute y'all laughing and talking. So stop. Love
yeah,
one another.
yeah.
One another.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys for tuning in. Man, this has been good. This has been rich, 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 rich. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you for
evening.
having
I,
me.
I
You
know I
do the
took a little
same.
bit more time, but we
It's great. Listen, we take up people time sometime as well. So
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
It's the flow. So I'm honored that you even have
yeah.
me on your platform, and I thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you soon, okay?
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.